why is Europe hesitant here, so far resisting President Trump's calls to send ships to the Strait of Hormuz?
It's very simple. For the same reason why President Trump has not sent the U.S. Navy into the Straits, because it's extremely dangerous. That's why.
And could this strain the unity of NATO here?
Well, I think it's not good for NATO. I think this is a tactical move by President Trump to change the conversation to why the Straits of Hormuz are such a problem. Because clearly, before going in, this had to have been it should have been a very important consideration as we planned our operation.
And is there confusion here? I mean, NATO countries say they weren't consulted, and this is an alliance for defence.
Well, look, Iran is a hostile power, right? It was their drones that Russia used to slam Ukrainian civilians and Ukrainian energy infrastructure. And they have, of course, been a hostile actor across the greater Middle East, literally since the mullahs took over in the late 1970s. So I think you can't simply say this is an aggressive war, because Iran has been an aggressor for close to half a century. But the key of any foreign policy intervention is the prospects for success. And the Straits of Hormuz were always the vulnerability of this operation. And no one wants to join an operation which, at this point, has done serious damage to Iran's nuclear program, to its missile capacity, but still has left the West vulnerable because of rocketing and predictably rocketing oil prices.
So no one wants to join in, as you say, but what would it take for this to escalate and draw other countries in? We're talking Europe here, but also countries like Australia.
Again, I'm not sure we will see other countries come in because the situation is so difficult. I think if the administration is willing to consider declaring victory on the basis of the extensive damage they've done to Iran's ability to project power, again, ballistic missiles, drone production, their nuclear program, and if there are conversation, presumably in deep dark channels, between Iran and the U.S. about this, and then the problem of the Straits of Hormuz being closed is resolved as part of it, this might be a solution that could work. But I think if the Iranians think that the United States and Israel are adamant about regime change, this is going to be a problem, and it'll be a problem again because the Straits of Hormuz are not easy for the United States, and even if you added some of our allies, to secure.
The UN is working on a solution here. Is there a diplomatic path here to de-escalation?
I don't think that the UN will be a factor in this. I think there would have to be direct contact between the United States and Iran. And again, that can be done with deep discretion, but I think that's the way you end this. Well, excuse me, let me mention one other thing. We can't rule out the possibility that the deeply unpopular regime in Tehran could, in fact, buckle. But we have no indication that's happening. And even though the U.S. and Israel have done an extraordinary job wiping out senior leaders, there's obviously still resilience amongst the Revolutionary Guards, the mullahs, that keeps resistance continuing. And again, continuing especially stopping the flow of oil, which is very important for the United States, the West, and for that matter, the global economy.
Yeah, well, on that, I mean, the Straits closure is clearly hurting the global economy, but what pain is it or will it cause Iran? And is that a major factor when, as they see it, this is an existential crisis for them?
Well, if the regime believes that their demise is the only way the United States and Israel accept peace, they will accept extraordinary privation to stay in power. And of course, we've seen they don't care about their own people, as they murdered 30,000 or so demonstrators before President Trump launched this operation. Let's not forget that factor. So it's conceivable there may be people somewhere in the power structure saying, this is nuts, we have to make peace. But again, we have no evidence of that, at least no public evidence of that.
John, is this war testing US dominance or reinforcing it, do you think?
It depends entirely on the outcome. If the regime in Tehran crumples, that'll be a major, major American victory. If the regime does not crumble and the United States is still at war in 2 or 3 months and oil is over $200 a barrel, the administration has a very serious problem.
And who could take advantage and test US resolve elsewhere? US attention and resources are in the Middle East.
Well, look, Israel had done a number on Hezbollah before this war began, and they're taking a greater a number on them today. The Houthis have been silent since the American campaign a year ago. Hamas is also much weaker than it was before their massacre of Israelis in October of 2023. Russia is making some gains right now, and this is a problem. Their gains, of course, are because as a result of the oil supply problem, the United States has on a temporary basis lifted sanctions. That's meant serious money coming into Russia, which was not coming in before. Also, Putin is poking President Trump in the eyes as his military is providing targeted information used against American forces and Americans' allies and partners in the Middle East. And it's peculiar to contrast Trump giving the Europeans, our NATO allies, a hard time and not giving Putin a hard time about this. That's not a good look.